Grow Great is a city government leadership podcast with Lisa Norris and me, Randy Cantrell. Each week we share insights, experiences, and wisdom to help you and your leadership grow great. Our website is growgreat.com.
We haven't talked about it in quite a while, but I know I've been privileged to live in a city that's had a fantastic culture for my 30-year career. And boy, if anything, if your actions speak louder than words on anything, it is culture. One thing I've learned when we were implementing this is moons and moons ago. So I've been here 30 years, 27 of those in HR, and worked through Tom Hart and now with Bill Hills, who is very much like Tom, our city managers. And culture counts, culture matters. But we saw this quote that says, culture is what you won't compromise. It's not what you say or think it is. And then Randy and I actually added to that, it's what you do consistently that actions matter. You can talk the talk, but you got to walk the walk. It's culture comes down to not only what you say and what you think, but it has to inherently be a belief system that is evidenced from the top down. It cannot be halfway or it will not stay and stick. It has to be something we believe in. It has to be something that is talked about, and it has to be lived and breathed from the top and down to the lowest level of the organization, where your actions mirror what the culture says it is. If it's not, it becomes incongruent, and incongruency kills. Your high performers will leave if something is incongruent. So actions matter. In my belief system, actions count as to what we evidence that we believe in, and it should be felt from not only internally in the organization, but anybody you come into contact with, externally, businesses, vendors, even those that you're saying no to. There should be a different level of impact that they feel and go, yes, I see their mission statement, their values, their vision, and their culture reflects those.
Yeah, I was taught, by an old woman in my 20s, that whole congruency thing, which you and I've spent a lot of time talking about, that high performers, they'll be the first to leave when the boss says one thing and does something different, when the actions don't match the speeches. And I looked back at my short career and I thought, yeah, that's true for me. Mm-hmm. And she convinced me that was true for everybody. And I have found that it's absolutely right. I think most of us have seen memes and things and quotes about, culture being impacted largely by that thing that you tolerate. So if you tolerate low performance, okay, well, there's your culture. Mm-hmm. So what will you tolerate? What won't you tolerate? Which is that whole compromise. Culture is what you won't compromise. I always have called them non-negotiables. Like, what are my non-negotiables? As a leader, I would define my non-negotiables as what will cost you your job. If you do this, can you continue to work? And so for me, there were things like honesty. I mean, if you lie, okay, if you lie once, depends on the lie, but you better not lie twice. I'm not gonna compromise on that, because if I compromise on that, then I might as well ask people to believe me when I lie. So every leader's got to determine it. I'm wondering for you, so if we think of city managers in this space and we think of the executive team, so we've got the overall culture, the whole city, and then we've got all these subcultures, and a subculture being Parks and Rec, Public Works, Finance, HR, whatever these departments are. Mm-hmm. What's your belief about that? What's your belief about if the culture overall isn't exactly ideal, mm-hmm. and in many cases it's not, then can you still be a department head and have enough influence and enough authority to have a culture. Because come on, I think that's largely who we're talking to here. I mean, it's not lost on me. Yes, we've got city managers who listen, but this is not a city manager kind of a podcast necessarily. It's just leadership, whether that's a person running a street crew, you know, whether that's some supervisor in an HR department, whatever, to an executive level department head. So when you think about culture overall, how do you think about that in terms of, say, your ability as an HR director or any director to really influence and have your department be what you want it to be?
Well, there's two approaches to this. Not only departmentally, but you've heard me talk about it before. I believe HR is the hub of a city. I mean, we are the hub, and all the spokes on the wheel go out. They're the departments. The outside of the wheel is our citizenry, and everything we feed comes from, in my opinion, comes from HR. We have to help hire the people, pay the people to do the jobs in the departments well, and to impact the culture. And it starts there because we are the first potential view of a city's culture from the time they walk in the front door and hit the front desk of getting a job with the city. You know, how many times have you and I preached to people, you got to look at the culture. How do they treat you when you walk in the door and you're unknown? How do they treat you through every step of the process? That is the first impression. You get about 30 seconds to make it or break it. So culture, departmentally, there was a couple of things. First, I think we have to establish it as, in our case, we talk about city government leadership. I think in a city government, we have to establish what is our culture? How do we want to define that if you haven't already got it defined? Two, what actions are we taking to live and breathe that? Is it actively published? Is it the actions are expected and we tolerate no less, your non-negotiables? For me, my non-negotiables are willingness, attitude, and trust. If I don't have those three things from an employee, from department heads, from the city manager's office, I have to be able to have candid conversations that are genuine, and we can discuss the challenges we see and face to agree on a path forward when we have those. Because if, to your point, if you tolerate those, if you tolerate bad behavior, if you tolerate poor performance and don't hold people accountable, and it goes on for a long period of time, honestly, Randy, I don't care how much you talk about your culture. People see that and they know we're not living it. What you're telling me you believe in, you're not holding people to the standard. So why am I going to keep busting myself trying to live this and go the extra mile if I see you're not holding people accountable to that standard? That doesn't mean you can't correct them and they don't know it. I call it corrective versus punitive. I try to correct behaviors, not just punish behaviors. It's the whole positive reinforcement. If we can get them to do what we need them to do, maybe they didn't understand, maybe they didn't know. I kind of get to the root of it. Now, if they keep making the same mistakes, then is that an attitude or willingness issue? At the end of the day, it's up to them.
Or are they capable? Is it a capacity issue?
Yeah,
maybe they
exactly.
Just can't do
but
it.
At some point, I've communicated clearly what my expectations is. If you can't meet it, or you're choosing not to, capability or attitude.
Well, either
willingness,
way, something's got to give.
Something's got to give. And at the end of the day, I'm going to hold my standard. I'm not going to relinquish my standard to bring and experience the impact to other people. I have to meet candidly with that employee or that person and say, we're at the end of the rope here as far as you've got to make a choice. Don't make me make it. I've communicated what I need. You haven't stepped up to the need. And I just expect that of everybody, from you to everybody else that would follow in your shoes. And you need to make a choice now, because you're not fulfilling what I need to happen, and I want you happy and I want me happy, and this is in your best interest. They may not feel that way in the moment, but I'm not going to have bad attitudes and an unwilling heart to do what I need you to do in our unknown work. You know, we get unknown projects in HR all the time that we had known nothing about. In city manager's office, I can't tell you, most of the projects they gave me, completely unfamiliar, completely out of my wheelhouse. But I researched them and tried to figure it out, which we've talked a lot about, just figure it out.
Yep.
You know, those things on culture counts. And to your point, it's, you have to manage the people and manage the expectation and not be afraid to have crucial conversations, which I think so many people are. You can have your best performers that still have a miss. You got to coach them right in the moment and say, listen, this is what I saw. How do you think it went? Here's what I'd like to see. Now, how do we get there? I think you gave your best effort, but it's not quite meeting the mark of what I'd like to see. But what are your thoughts on it? And let's get to this higher mark next time. And they try to step up. Any high performer is going to try to step up because they want, you know, they want to do the best thing they can for themselves, for your department, and for your city in our case. So that's one. The second thing is, from a citywide perspective, we have to be on the same page and accountable, even to your best performers again. You cannot allow low performers to stay in an organization, because at some point, everybody can see it. Like, it's that whole theory of once you see it, you can't unsee it. If they don't step up, then pretty much you're going to find yourself getting a quiet organization. And when you have a quiet organization, that's dangerous. When people are no longer talking, they're no longer engaging, that's when I would recognize it at the department head level. If I see my people not talking in a meeting, there is a bigger problem. And I would always just kind of stop and know, okay, I got to get to the bottom of this. Something is going on. There was always something. When they get quiet, there is a problem every time. Yeah. Right? Whether it's the people you serve or your own team, there's a problem, and you've got to go start asking questions and make it better.
Well, the compromise and the unwavering commitment to not lower your standard, I think, is the real key. And so many leaders do it because, well, we need bodies. Mm-hmm. And there's all kinds of ways that we excuse our choices to accept poorer performance than we know we should. And very few times in my experience do we really give thought to how much that's eroding our own leadership. Mm-hmm. So that's my leadership tip for this is, if you compromise it, just know this: you're being judged. Your
Whether
team,
you recognize it or not, people notice.
Yeah, your team's paying attention, and they're making a mental note, consciously or subconsciously, that you really don't mean it. Mm-hmm. And then if you do mean it with me, but you don't mean it with them, then now we've really got a problem, because now I know you're a hypocrite, and now I know I'm being held to a standard that a coworker or somebody else in the team, they're not being held to that same standard.
And it's interesting to this, Randy, to your point, it's what I've found, and it's hard for leaders sometimes. It was hard for me. The team also doesn't know what you're already doing. If you're a good leader, they have no idea you've met with somebody. They have no idea you've held them to the standard unless that employee chooses to share it with somebody on the team. And, you know, a secret's a secret amongst one. Yeah. That's right. Once you share with somebody else, you can say, hey, I'm telling you, but don't tell anybody else. That never works.
No, you might as well say, tell everybody you know.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to tell everybody that you know.
Yeah, we always used to laugh because and even the firefighters would tell me, they're like, listen, you know the old theory. And I said, no, what is it? And they're like, telephone, telefax, or telefirefighter. And if you want somebody to know about it, that's and we would always just laugh about that. And they told me that probably 20 years ago, and it's forever stuck with me. Yeah. But a secret's a secret amongst one. So the challenge, like you said, is they often don't know what you're doing. But even working with you over the years,
they know what you're not doing, though.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They don't know what you are doing or what you're not doing, but they are, what I have learned, they are watching, and it will create dissatisfaction. It will create discouragement. It will create discontent. And often they can only see it over time, which is goes back to our whole point when we started this. Actions matter. They need to see, I may not know it, but in my case, Lisa. But Lisa, I have seen her over time. I feel confident she's going to address it. If she's seeing it, she's going to address it. And your long timers will know a pattern of how you act to support what you say. And that creates the integrity issue, right? They don't have to be in the room, but they've seen it at play over time that you're going to hold people to the same standard. So when you address them, they're going to know she means it. She means it. And it doesn't have to be hateful. It's just you've got to stick to the standard that supports the culture and the expectation. And any break in that, if you tolerate it for a long period of time, your culture will be damaged until it's fixed. They will see it, they will judge it, and you must follow the actions that mirror the words, or you've got incongruency.
Thanks for watching and listening to Grow Great, the City Government Leadership Podcast. Our website is growgreat.com. For Lisa Norris, I'm Randy Cantrell. We hope you'll subscribe to the show, and we hope you'll tell a friend.